Hi guys, it's Jean here. Welcome to my channel. So a few weeks ago I posted up a video about Asians with depression, following my thoughts and struggles with Asian culture dealing with depression. And I did receive some lovely comments and emails. I was quite overwhelmed by the amount of people that understood where I was coming from, as well as just sharing their thoughts and ideas as well. And following that email, I thought I'll do this one. This is something that I watched a few months ago. Jen Im did, and I think her friend created it. It was like the Asian American tag, growing up Asian American and like the struggle. So I thought I would do one as well. So even though I'm not an American, I'm Australian, I feel like regardless of where you are in the world, like for any Asians going to a Western society, like a Western community, it's kind of like similar situations in a way. But yeah, so I do apologize as well for the lighting. It's like 5 o'clock right now. The sun is about to go down, so I'm getting these weird shadows on my face. But I'll try and make this as quick as possible because I know my videos go for a very long time. So let's just jump into it. So my ethnicity is Chinese East Timorese, so I like to say that I was born and bred as an Australian. My parents were born in East Timor, now known as Timor-Leste, and my ancestors are from China. Fun fact as well, I did do a DNA test, so if you want to watch that, I'll leave a link down below. It was kind of expected, but there were some interesting things that it didn't actually show up, so I'm not sure whether it was accurate or not. So I am first generation Australian. My mum, you told me once that if I ever go to China, tell them that I'm, I think, the 20th or 21st generation of our family. I'm not sure what that means, but anyway, so my dad came in the 70s, I guess, to work and send money back to support his family, to bring him over. My mum came in the 80s, same situation, but to study as well. They both met and fell in love, got married here, and had me and my brother. So I've kind of touched on this previously in my other videos, but my dad came in the 70s, like this was pre-war, like when Portugal kind of exited out of Timor and Indonesia came invaded, and then East Timor went through this kind of independence kind of like war thing going on. So I guess it really depends on the time you come, like that you came to Australia, how that kind of impacts you and your struggles. So I know, like my husband, for example, he came in the 90s where it was as a refugee because of the whole war. So he's got a different set of struggles, different kind of experience towards me. Like for me, because my dad came in the 70s, he did kind of adapt to the Western society and did his best to kind of fit in, which really didn't impact me. I didn't feel like a minority. Like we lived in like a normal suburb area, like my parents and I, like, you know, we lived in a normal suburb. In primary school, I don't recall ever feeling different, like treated differently. I had, like, all my friends were all white. Like where I was living, there was a minority of Asians, but I didn't feel any different. I was still a normal child playing with friends, and it didn't really impact me. Like I didn't have any, you know, weird lunches or anything. Like my parents were quite westernized, as in they didn't want me to feel like an outcast. For lunch I would have, you know, normal Vegemite sandwiches, chips, drinks, you know, nothing out of the ordinary. But I think when it comes to like my first experience, I think that's more when I was a little bit, it wasn't that I had a bad experience, it's that I noticed a few things growing up in primary school. For example, every Saturday I would have to go to Chinese school, whereas my friends all played sports and everything, and I was kind of like jealous that, you know, I never got into any sports or played any musics or anything like that. Like after school, it was a treat for my parents to allow me to go to my friend's house to play after school. But like, you know, you hear stories now, kids go play with each other after schools, or they take up sports, and I always felt I myself made myself feel different, thinking I never had that. Like after school I'd go home, you know, play around at home and do my homework and stuff. Saturdays were more Chinese school, so I wasn't able to play any sports, and I felt kind of left out in that sense. And I'm pretty sure it's something that I created in my head. Like I didn't feel discriminated from other people, it was just from me. So that being said, I didn't really know much about, you know, heritage and stuff like that. It's not something that I thought of when I was a child. When I was born, my grandparents, so when I grew up, my parents spoke to me in Mandarin because I guess they just thought, you know, it was more common language. It would benefit me career-wise growing up. My grandparents did live with me until the age of 4 or 5, so they spoke to me in Chinese Hakka, which was like a Chinese dialect that was used in East Timor. So I was quite fluent in both of them until I reached kindergarten and primary school, and my grandparents moved out, so I kind of stopped speaking that, but I could understand it. And my parents obviously continued to try to speak to me in Mandarin, but then when school started I spoke English, and I was very much in a Western world. Like, I didn't really, the only thing Asian to me is like going grocery shop in an Asian shop, like at dinner. Like, my parents were quite open to different things, like having pasta for dinner, or like, you know, fish and chips and stuff like that, but we would often have like rice and like Asian meals. But it's not something that, you know, I felt any different. Like, I guess anyone had, you know, for me going to my friend's house for dinner, they'll have fish and chips and stuff like that. There were times where I thought, you know, this is completely different, this is nice, but it didn't really change anything. And I never felt like I was connected to my heritage at all, apart from like when it comes to meals. Like, we did, like, the things I noticed we do differently is like for New Year's, for example, we didn't celebrate Chinese New Year on Chinese New Year, we did it during normal year. So, you know, when friends say, you know, went out for celebrate New Year's Eve, for us tradition was to go visit families, get red pockets, you know, and things like that. So that was always fun, but it's not something that I really thought about. And in a way, I wouldn't say I rejected it, I was not aware of my heritage until I started high school. Even in high school, it didn't really bother me because I went to an all-girls Catholic school in like the bushes almost, like, you know, further out from the city, where it was mostly westernized, except if you're an international student. And I guess when you grow up and you're in high school, that's when I kind of felt like I still did not feel like I was an outcast. I still had friends. Most of my friends were all white, and I didn't get treated differently at all. I still went through like all the puberty and all the stuff that normal girls go through. But in Chinese school, it's like I kind of felt like I had two different worlds. In Chinese school that I went every Saturday, I started becoming friends with other people that were similar ethnicity as me. They were also Chinese Timorese, and we kind of bonded in that, like noticing little things like, you know, oh, what we eat at home, like parties, like, you know, and like things like that we would, like, Timorese would go to. So we kind of bonded, but we didn't go to the same school. So I guess I kind of lived two lives. Like, the life in high school was with my Western friends, and the life outside of that with the friends I made through Chinese school. We just kept in contact, and they went to schools in areas where there was more Asian. So that kind of brought me in and realized how non-Asian I was, and I guess it made me want to fit in as well, especially when it came to like boys and things like that. Because I went to a girls' school, it's like I was very naive, and I wouldn't say like I was exactly like a prune, but I didn't really know anything about boys or anything. So I guess this was like a whole world that I wanted to know, and it kind of brought me more in wanting to know more about being, you know, where I was from, my heritage and things like that, and being more Asian. So I wasn't really stereotyped by my white friends. Like, it was pretty crazy growing up. Like, I didn't feel like I got treated differently or anything. If anything, I was kind of on the opposite end of being stereotyped. Like, a lot of people think, you know, being Asian, you're smart, you're, you know, academically smart, you can do a lot of things, you work hard. But I was the opposite, honestly. Like, my high school, like, my grades weren't the best, but they weren't the worst either. I kind of sat in between. I do admit I am I'm not a bad driver. I can drive. I'm just careless, as in, like, you know, road rules and things like that. But if you put me in a situation where, like, I'm driving in an area that I don't know, like, I can drive confidently, if that makes sense. I guess the big change in my life was at the same age, like around 13, 14, when I started high school and I started hanging around my friends. I went to Chinese school. I was now in this Asian kind of, like, you know, Asian pride kind of style, you know, dressing up slightly different, like, you know, with the whole long kind of jackets and like the flared pants and, like, you know, what do you call those, like, knee, like those furry kind of knee cup, like, was that knee? I don't know what I was wearing, but it was like weird fashion. Anyway, so then by the time I was 14, which was like a critical age, where, you know, it either makes or breaks you. We relocated to Darwin. Darwin is up north in the Northern Territory in Australia. It's more, you know, very Australian. There's more like population of Aboriginals there, even though they had, like, you know, an Asian community as well. But I felt like it was very different to being in Melbourne, and I felt like I was stuck. Like, now that I was kind of more aware of my Asian heritage, I didn't have anyone to bond with over there, so I kind of felt like it was a bit of a setback. But, you know, I don't know, like, I guess when I went there, they assumed, like, especially high school, they put me into, like, this, you know, maths class that was kind of like above average. I'm not sure whether because they read through my grades or they just assumed because I'm Asian that I'm smarter. I don't know, but I clearly didn't, like, last that long in that class. If anything, being in Darwin made me dumber because I ended up wagging school up by the end of the year. I pretty much missed last semester. But you know what, I am street smart though, being Asian. Like, I did, you know, start a business, my first entrepreneur kind of business, like stealing cigarettes from my parents' takeaway shop and selling them at school. So I guess I was more like, I wasn't academically smart, but I was kind of smart in a way that I can get through life in some areas. So whether I was stereotyped, I think if anything, I stereotyped myself than actually felt like someone else stereotyped me. In terms of languages, my first primary language is English. My parents obviously spoke to me in Mandarin growing up. I understand a lot, but I cannot read or write. I spent 13 years at school, literally the day I came out. Like, I just do not remember anything. And I have a feeling it's because I felt like I was forced into it, that I always kind of rebelled against it. So it was never really my thing. Do I, you know, regret it? Like, yeah, I mean, I guess it could have gotten me further in life if I knew, like, you know, Mandarin in terms of career, which was probably what my parents wanted me to do. But I just felt like being forced into it, it kind of made me rebel a lot against it. Like I said, my grandparents lived with us, so I was quite fluent in Chinese, in Hakka. But because they left, it's something that I could always understand but never, I guess, really complete a full sentence. Once I started dating Kyung, because his family speaks majority, like, you know, Hakka, I kind of was able to learn more and feel more comfortable speaking Hakka, especially to my grandparents and my aunties and uncles. Now that we're no longer, I guess, talking to his family, like, Kyung always says, like, he's Hakka's now, he can't, like, complete a sentence. I feel like, you know, when you get the feeling when you know what it is in your head but you just can't say it out. So it's kind of broken, but it's enough. And, like, even conversations with my mum now, you know, it's kind of broken into all three languages. So our conversation will start off with, like, Mandarin, and then all of a sudden she's never spoke to me in Hakka, then she'll start speaking to me like that since we got married, and then in English as well. So it's just all three jumbled up into one. So being an Asian in Australia, I guess you don't really see any difference with the relationships with your parents because you don't know any other differences. If I was to compare with my friends, then, you know, obviously they're more, like, they seemed more laid back and more chill. With my parents, like I mentioned in my depression struggle video, is that, you know, that's something that I never had with my parents. Like, we never discussed feelings, we never discussed, you know, what we did on the weekends, you know, how we felt and things like that. Our relationship was, like, you know, growing up, making sure that I was fed, I was cleaned, I was looked after, making sure that, you know, academically they tried their best to, I guess, guide me into the right direction. At some point though, obviously they may have thought, you know what, this isn't working for her because she doesn't seem like she's going anywhere. There was a time, I don't know, I didn't feel like I had, like, a close relationship with my parents, like, close enough that I felt comfortable sharing every feeling. Like, I felt like growing up I was always lying to them about everything. They didn't know me for who I was or what I liked. But there was an incident when I was 17 where I did try to commit suicide. It was a failed attempt, and that's not something I want to go through because I don't really want to encourage at this stage, but it opened up, I guess, to them how much I struggled. And I guess the main reason why I don't want to talk about it because it just brings back those emotions as well, but pretty much, like, after what I did, the good thing is I had I guess older cousins, especially one that was a psychologist that kind of like intervened and you know, was there for me, and also tried to explain it to my parents. But yeah, there was one thing that my dad said that really stuck to my heart till this day, is that, you know, as a child, when you're underage, I am your legal guardian. You know, my job is to protect you and, you know, do the best to kind of raise you. But once you turn 18, you know, the world is yours. Like, you have the right to make your own decision. And I guess that was the first time, like, we kind of had that deep, meaningful conversation. And I guess after all that, what was good about it was that, you know, he kept his promise. And, you know, after I turned 18, I felt like I struggled because I was now independent, that I could kind of do my own things, that I didn't know where to start. And the good thing was, like, even though I still did everything I could, I didn't feel like I missed out on anything. I went clubbing, you know, I found work, I did this, I did that. I knew my parents, like, my parents never kind of enforced any, like, rules and stuff for me, because I was now, even though I was living under their roof, I was now over the legal age to do whatever I wanted. And even though my parents probably didn't agree to my clubbing lifestyle back when I was in my early 20s, like, it was nice to know that even though I came home at like 4 o'clock in the morning or something, you know, when I opened the front door quietly, I could see a flicker of light in my parents' room, knowing that my dad was, like, you know, just waiting to make sure I was okay when I got home. And it's funny because prior to that, I felt like I didn't have that relationship with my parents, but now that I am an adult, our relationship is a lot closer than ever. My dad also went through his own depression, like, experience, so I guess that kind of gave us an understanding of I guess each other. And you know what, like, if I had this back when I was like younger, I think we would have all been okay. But at the same time, we are where we are now, in a more happier place together, and I'm really grateful for that he was able to, I guess put all those cultural differences aside and, you know, just really try to understand where I was coming from. But yeah, so that's our relationship. So I guess to recap, like, growing up, I didn't feel like I was treated any differently. If anything, I created those kind of struggles myself, comparing myself as a minority towards other people, you know, what I was missing out, maybe because I was Asian, I don't know. But I don't feel any different. And some may take this the wrong way as, you know, you don't, like, how dare you, like, you know, not think that you're Asian because you are. It's, I don't feel any different in towards my heritage. Like, it's not something that I'm familiar with. You know, one day maybe, you know, if my parents feel comfortable, I might want to go back and see where they come from and things like that. But at this stage in my life, with all the issues that I've had previously with, you know, the whole Asian culture thing that I explained, with Kang's family and with my family, I don't feel connected to my heritage. If anything, I'm trying to find ways to go above and beyond that to be happy with myself. How I identify myself now is, if anything, stronger as an Australian. Just trying to live life knowing who I am. And in the future, you know, when I have kids, I guess in a way I feel more comfortable knowing that being Melbourne, especially being a very diverse culture, that it's more accepting to different diversities. You know, that nowadays, like back then in the 90s, you know, you can never think about bringing anything but sandwiches to school. Like, even, I don't know, like rice or anything like that, it was not really something accepted. But nowadays, you know, it's more open. People bring sushi, people bring, like, you know, like kebab rolls and stuff like that. I don't know, like whatever they bring, rice and like food to school. Well, I don't know, because there's all these rules about like allergies. You can't bring peanuts or banana and stuff like that. So, but I think moving forward in the next generation, I think, you know, it's more accepting for them. Right now, I don't, again, feel any different. The only thing I feel like that needs improving is more diversity in terms of media, as well as representation, like whether it comes to parliament, whether it comes to TV ads and things like that, is that we know as an Australian that we are very diverse, but we're still not represented. Like the other day, my girlfriend and I went and watched Crazy Rich Asians, and it honestly, like, a lot of people don't understand how much of importance that is, because ever since then there's like, you know, searching, like there's all these like, and even the, you know, To All the Boys I Used to Love, like all these Asian people are now leading up then supporting actors. Like it's really creating something that, you know, it's not to say that we didn't have that exposure, but it's good to see that it's now diverse, that, you know, it's not just a normal white person or a black person, you know, having those lead roles. It's like there's also now minorities of ethnicity groups that are also now achieving. I think I'm seeing a lot more diversity in that, but I think that is still something that needs improving. So I guess being Asian Australian, I mean, the one thing that I guess I like the most is the fact that I can bitch about someone in front of them in a different language, hoping that they don't know the language, because I guess it's the one benefit that, you know, you have if you can speak different languages. I guess also, like, you know, understanding other cultures as well, being diversely different, that, you know, when it comes to thinking and things like that. But I don't think it just matters on the color of your skin. I think it's more life experiences that make you, you know, realize that as well. Food is a good one as well. Like, you know, a lot of times when I go out, I notice how when I go out with specific people, we arrange dates, coffee, lunches and stuff like that, depending on, you know, what I know they would eat, what they know. Like when we have barbecue at our house, like what I cater to, like catch up with my cousins, is completely different to my catch up with my girlfriends. Like just kind of different types of food. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Anyway, so that was my experience being Asian Australian. Like honestly, I didn't really feel discriminated. I didn't really have a bad experience growing up, but again, it may also mean like, you know, the circumstances on how I came to Australia. Like I said, you know, if it was Kang who came in the 90s because, you know, he was a refugee, then that's a different kind of story and how he struggled. But because I've always kind of been exposed, I guess, in the Western culture from a young age, and being, I guess, having parents that really adapted to it, like it kind of eased my struggles growing up. If anything, it was all in my head and what I thought was different. But again, a lot of those feelings, I feel like it's like a growing up kind of thing, that you don't know where you fit in, and then having that extra, you know, being like looking different, like also plays in that fact in where you belong as well. So yeah, if you were an Asian Australian, I would love for you to hit me up and share your stories as well. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and also make sure you subscribe to watch more. Thanks for watching. Bye.